All right, folks, we're set to go. For our second speaker this afternoon, we have William Bill Eckberg. Bill is a native of Grand Rapids, Michigan. He attended, graduated, and got degrees from the University of Michigan and from Michigan State University. So if you know the fact that those two schools are always at each other's throats, Bill's got both sides covered in Michigan. He's got a degree from both of them. He started his professional career and continued his professional career as a biology professor, department chairman, and dean at Howard University, from which he retired in 2009. After that, Bill decided he was going to get active again, and he spent 2 years with the National Science Foundation. Bill has been a copper collector since the late 1980s, primarily specializing, as you probably know, in half-cents. He's the author of many articles in Pennywise, The Numismatist, and has produced 2 books. The Half-Cent, 1793 to 1857, America's Greatest Little Coin, was published in 2019. Bill co-authored the grading guide for our EAC grading book, which was published in 2014, and he received the Book of the Year award from the Numismatic Literary Guild. He has served EAC as our president.
I better sit down.
He was a secretary of Region 3 and a vice president. He's a life member of EAC and a member of the ANA, Fund, C4, and the Indianapolis Coin Club, the Indiana Numismatic Association, and the Rittenhouse Society, among others. Bill's home, which I'm happy to report, is currently on the road, as he is in the process of leaving Indiana, and he's moving back to Florida, where I'm from, so we'll have him back with us real shortly. So it's a pleasure to present for our second speaker, my friend, Bill Eckberg.
Thank you, Lou. Everybody hear me? My voice is a little bit weak. As you know, I've been a little bit under the weather, but I'm feeling much better today. You also probably know, if you've been reading Pennywise for the last few years, that I have done a lot of studies of the dies of the U.S. large cents and half cents, and I got to the end of that. I had studied the dies of all of the large cents and half cents, and so not knowing what to do, I decided to study the patterns of 1792. The cool thing about those is that almost nobody can ever own them because they're all extremely rare, extremely expensive, except for one, the half Disney. So what I'm going to do is give you a little history and background about these. First of all, the decimal system for coinage was adopted in 1786 under the Articles of Confederation. The Constitution was adopted in 1787, but it still had to be ratified. So the government was established in 1789 with a Congress and a president and Supreme Court. And Congress made a resolution to hire artisans for a mint on March 3rd, 1791. They did not establish a mint when they did this. They said, go out and hire artisans to work at the mint. Well, where's the mint? There is no mint. They established a mint 13 months later on April 2, 1792. Congress was under control right then, too. The first circulating coins produced were 1,500 half dismies, and I know that's not the official pronunciation, but in honor of my good friend Dennis Loring, I'm going to pronounce the word dismy in this talk. In 1792, for Thomas Jefferson, who gave them $75 worth of silver, and they gave him 1,500 half dismies that he spent on his way back to Monticello that summer. The first substantial circulating coins you all know about. Those were the cents and half cents of 1793. So the Mint Act, there were 2 versions of it. The Senate version said that the obverse should have an effigy of the president with his first initial and his last name, the succession of his presidency, and the date. Yeah, definitely pretty regal looking. And here's an example of one that was made hoping to get a contract. George G. Washington, President 1, first president, 1792. And if that had passed, that's what our coins would still look like today. And in fact, they do look like that today, don't they? So we've gone back to monarchical practices. House of Representatives version was quite different. They said, upon one side of each of said coins there shall be an impression emblematic of liberty with an inscription of the word liberty and the year of the coinage. And on the reverse, there was going to, for the gold and silver coins, there was going to be an eagle with the inscription United States of America. And on the reverse of each of the copper coins, there should be an inscription of the denomination, half cent or cent, as the case may be. So that passed by only 3 votes. If 3 of the Federalists had not changed their vote, our coinage would look the same today. Okay? It's terrible. Anyway, what did liberty mean to Americans in the 1790s? We think we know what liberty means. It means civil liberties that we talk about, the right to vote and so on. But that isn't necessarily what it meant then. Did it mean freedom from England? Well, probably not, because the War for Independence was over almost 10 years before that. Freedom from slavery? Well, definitely not. Freedom from external restraint. Freedom from external restraint. In other words, the right to do what you want to do. Okay? You are the boss of you. And that is what freedom meant in the Enlightenment. And Thomas Jefferson was nothing if not a man of the Enlightenment. And Thomas Jefferson was the person that the Mint reported to. So there's a little politics in there. So what would an emblem of liberty look like? What would it look like? Well, it turns out Thomas Jefferson also loved France, and there were 2 French models. The one on the left is Libertas Americana. You all, I think, are familiar with that. That was produced at the request of Benjamin Franklin in Paris and passed out to all of the muckety-mucks in the government. And so they were all very familiar with this. This was produced in 1783. The one on the right, I actually like a little better. It's Liberté Françoise. And at the bottom, it's kind of hard to read on the screen, but it means the date is the first year of the French Republic. Okay? The French Republic started renumbering the calendar. Okay? They didn't use the calendar we use. Anyway, that's Liberté Françoise. That is from 1792. The government may not have seen it when they started producing coins, but I like it, so it's there.
Hey, Bill, is that rare?
Liberté Françoise, it's not particularly rare. A few $100s. Depends. If you want a really, really nice one like that, probably low 4 figures. Okay? Thank you. First coin. How many of you are ANA members? You should be if you're not. This is the cover of the June issue of Numismatist that is at least out digitally. I don't know if they've sent it in the mail yet, but it's out digitally. And the birch scent is on the cover, and the cover article is my article about the birch scent. And that's it. The last time the birch scent was seen in public was in 1981 when it was sold in the Garrett 4 sale. As a result, there are no good images of this coin circulating out there. Everything is half-toned. They're a mess. I was fortunate enough to get the owner of this coin, whose name I will not mention, to give it to Kevin Vinton to photograph in color and at high resolution. And so now we have this. Let's talk about it. On the obverse, we have the Miss Liberty, or Ms. Liberty, the word liberty, and the date, just like just like Congress said it should have. But it also says parent of science and industry. And on the reverse, we have United States of America, which the legislation did not necessarily say had to be there on cents and half cents. The word 1 cent, we have a wreath, we have a circle of dots, we have a couple of things of vegetation above and beyond below 1 cent. And at the bottom, GWPT for George Washington President. A lot of people have taken this to mean that this coin must have been produced before the Mint Act was passed, because the Mint Act didn't call for the president to be identified on the coinage. That is a mistake, because the Mint Act did not say you could not put the president's name on the coinage, and anything that you are not allowed, anything that you are not specifically not allowed to do, you can do. So I would not say that this was made in January or February of 1792, although it was certainly made very early. If you look at her hair, you see more of her hair, even on this screen, you see more of her hair than anybody looking in catalogs or books has ever seen before. Her hair is really weird. Okay, the 1790s were a time of big hair. Okay, they were really a time of big hair. But her hair is really short on the top, really long at the back, and most of it appears to come from under the back of her skull. So she's basically got a 1792 version of a mullet. Everybody see that? She's got a 1792 version of a mullet. I don't know why that would have been considered attractive, but hey, who am I to judge, right? Who am I to judge? We'll talk more about this coin as we go along. This is the second version of the birch cent. You can see the hair is completely different. Okay? The writing and the date are exactly the same as on the one we just looked at. The wreath is completely different. That circle of dots is missing. The vegetation above and below 1 cent is not there, and instead of GWPT, we have a large double bow and 1/100th. Again, it doesn't say that you have to have a wreath or 1/100th, but it doesn't say you can't do it. And we'll talk about this one a little bit more in a moment. Here's the half dismy. If you look at it, it really looks a lot like a birch cent facing the other way, doesn't it? And we'll talk about that too, and we'll talk about why. And this is one of my favorites. This is the dismy. This is in copper. It turns out that one collector has managed to acquire all 3 of the dismies in silver, and I don't even want to talk about it. Anyway, these are also very, very rare. It's a beautiful thing. It looks like a 1793 half cent, doesn't it? And we'll talk about that too. And this lovely thing is a silver center cent, finest known. Once again, Liberty, parent of science and industry, is up there, although they don't have room for all of the letters, but they do what they can. All of the coins from 1792 say Liberty, parent of science and industry. All of them. Okay? When were they made? Well, we know the first birch cent was made before December 18th, and it was probably made before June. We do not know exactly when it was made. We'll talk about it in a minute. Well, actually, I can tell you. It was actually struck on white metal, which is extremely soft, extremely delicate, and they probably just took a blob of white metal, set a bottom die down, put that on top, and hit it with a hammer. That's probably the way that coin was struck, because they filed the edge off all the way around with a knife. Okay? It's a lot more interesting coin than I thought it would be, actually. So the first birch cent before December 18th, probably before June. Half dismies we know were delivered to Jefferson on June 13. Silver center cents we know were struck December 17th to 18th, and we know that because Thomas Jefferson received a letter from the mint saying that that's what they were doing. The copper birch cents were struck after that. We don't know exactly when. They might have even been struck in 1793, but we don't know. The dismy, we have no idea whatsoever when it was made. There's no documentation of it anywhere.
Bill,
Yeah.
do you know of another group of half dimes that were made like in October, maybe 500 or so?
Yeah, there were supposedly a second striking of those. Nobody knows exactly how many were made, but yes, there was a second striking of those later that were supposedly given to muckety mucks. But the ones that Jefferson got are the ones that are mostly found today circulated. Punch linkage. How many of you here know what punch linkage is? Well, there's a few. Okay. Punch linkage is something that people who collect federal coins don't worry much about because the punches that were used to enter the letters and the numbers and so on, the government had lots of those. Okay? The government had lots of those, multiple sets. Colonial coin people study punch linkages to determine if coins were made the same place and by the same people. So we know that Jefferson purchased a set of punches from Ernst Frederick Geyer in April of 1792. He purchased some more in October of that year, and the price that he was paid for these suggests that each one took him about 3 hours to make. 3 hours to make. So the question is, do any of the patterns use the same letter punches? And if so, they're products of the mint. If not, they probably aren't products of the mint. So we'll talk about punch making. Punch making is not a simple matter of carving out the letter on the end of a piece of metal. Okay? What you do, if you want to make something simple like the letter O or the uppercase O, the lowercase o, or the letters or number 0, all of which are different, okay? What you do is you make a punch that is exactly the same as the interior of that coin, of that letter or number. Okay, you make a punch that is the interior of that. You punch that into a bar to make a punch, or to make the punch, and then you trim everything else around it. And you use gauges that you have. You have a set of little gauges that tell you exactly how large the letter should be or the number should be. It's a complicated process. If you want to do something that's more complex than a 0 or an O, you have to start with a counterpunch. And that thing in A is a counterpunch. And what it is just a little straight bar. The bar has been filed down on both sides and both ends. And that counterpunch is then hardened, hammered into another piece, or counterpunch is then hammered into another piece, B, and that is then trimmed to make the counterpunch. Okay? The counterpunch in this case is like the interior of the H. That is then hardened and hammered into another piece, which is going to be the punch, and then you trim that back and you get it. Some things like an R, can you imagine how much fun an R or a G would be to make? I don't even want to go into it, but this is how punches were made, and this is how punches were made so that they were consistent throughout the series of letters and numbers that people used. And everybody's punch set was a little different. So punch linkage, let's look at these three. The silver center cent, the dismy, and the half dismy. Fortunately, the same punches were used on all three of these. Okay, even though the half dismy is tiny, the letters were big. Okay, so the letters on all these are the same. Notice the long tail to the R. Can you see that? And it's consistent on all of them. The lower limb of the E sticks out above the top of the E, so it's like this. And the wide left diagonal on the Y. Can everybody see that? That's characteristic of these and no others, okay? If you look at the wreath cent, it's very similar, but the R is different, okay? So some of these punches might have been reused, but some of them are new. And if you look at the 1793 half cent, the R that was used in the wreath cent is now broken at the bottom, right here. See how that R is broken? So the half-cents were made, the half-cent dies were made after the wreath cents, and the Y is completely different. So new punches. Well, where did they come from? They came from a guy named Jacob Bay. So the half Disney, the Disney, and the silver center cent all use the same letter punch set by Geyer. And I could go through all the rest of the letters, and the same thing would be true, but I picked Liberty because it shows you the effect. Wreath and half cents of 1793 used at least partially a different punch set, probably by Jacob Bay. He was hired in December to do that. He also is the guy that probably coined the chain and wreath cents, and not too long after that he was fired for drunkenness, which may explain some things, I don't know. The wreath reverses in the chain used a larger punch set, and we don't know exactly where those came from. Perhaps they were from Jacob Bay. The birch cents used a much larger punch set, probably by Birch himself, that was not again ever again used by the mint. So here are the coins that we've been talking about. I just like to show a picture like that, you know. When are you ever going to see those all together? I mean, when are you ever going to see the 1792s all together? You're not, okay, because they're dispersed. But I want you to see that the silver center cent, the Disney, and the half cent are all the same size, okay? They're all the same size. We'll go into that. Look at the reverses of the cents. They all have wreaths, mostly single bows. The second birch has a double bow. So who made them? Well, here are the two birch cents. We say they're made by Birch. Why? Because at the truncation of Liberty's shoulder on the second version of it is the name Birch. He signed it. So how about the reverses? Well, we don't know. Or actually, to some extent, we do know. People have talked a long time about these dark areas here, up there, and some little streaks. People have talked about those as being carbon in the coin. Actually, what they are is planchet voids, and they're very deep. As I said, probably just mashed this into a little pile of white metal. And anyway, the lettering on the second birch cent does not match that on the first. So this is from a different die. The second birch cent is from a different die. The cool thing about the second birch cent is that the leaves were made from punches. Okay? The leaves in the first birch cent were individually engraved. So we believe, yeah, birch and who, okay? But we'll talk about who in a minute. Okay, so here are the reverses of the birch cent and the silver center cent. This is kind of going to blow you away. Because when we blow these up so that we can see the leaves, we see that the leaf punches on the second silver center cent, on the wreath cent and the second silver center cent are the same. They use the same punches. So they're made by the same guy. The other thing that will blow your mind, if you're more of a half cent, large cent guy, is that the punches for the wreath cent and the half cent are also the same. Okay? All of these made by Henry Voigt. So here's the first birch and the half Disney. You can see the difference in size. What if you flop the half Disney around and enlarge it so the heads are the same size? You can overlay them. And what you see here is that the entire profile is exactly the same. The neck is a little bit shorter. The bust is a little bit different. The hair is even worse on the half Disney. I'm sorry. Birch is dead. I can't. I can do that. Anyway, the profile is exactly the same. That means these were done from the same original drawing. They were done by the same guy. So here's this about actually just about exactly 7 years ago, I was fooling around with these coins, and I noticed that people have said since Maris that, gosh, these two look a lot alike, and everybody said, well, no, they can't be too much alike because all of these dies were hand engraved, and therefore they didn't look at it any further. But I said, no, these are too much alike, and I did an overlay, and boom, the face, the whole bust, everything is exactly the same. So the Disney and the half cent of 1793 were made from the same hub, okay? And that hub was made in 1792 for the Disney and used again in 1793 for the half cent. That surprised a lot of people, including me, actually. So here's the fun one. We know that the Disney was made by Henry Voigt. Who made the silver center cent? People have, for years, said silver center cent was made by Voigt because it wasn't very good. Okay, not nice. You know, we got Liberty Parent of Science and Industry on both of them, and to be honest, the silver center cent is pretty ugly. The look at her eyes; they're huge, way out of scale. She's got a hook nose. She's frowning. Nothing that Henry Voigt ever engraved had a hook nose, huge eyes, a frown, or for that matter, a receding double chin. This is not an attractive emblem of liberty. And to be honest, I have no idea who made this, and probably it's just as well that we don't know who made this. What's the matter? Oh yeah, Voigt and who? I don't know. So here are the reverses of the Disney and half Disney. Who made them? We don't really know. We could speculate that it was Voigt, but that would just be speculation, and I don't really want to do that. So I put question marks. Wait, there might be one more. Uh-oh, what's this? Eagle on globe. Eagle on globe. This is there are two known in pure copper, one of which is in the Smithsonian collection, and the other one is this. It's an emblematic of liberty. It says liberty above and the date below, United States of America, and an eagle on the reverse. There are weird things about this, though. Neither side has a rim, okay? Neither side has a rim. The reverse has 87 tiny stars, which I think were supposed to be 5-pointed stars, but none of them have an entire 5 points. It's actually a pretty engraved picture of a woman, and the eagle is not as bad as most of the early eagles that we have on U.S. coins. It's an attractive female. She's got her hair loosely tied up. Actually pretty nice. And this was, as I said, there are 2 known in copper. There are 4 known in white metal, 2 of which are available to collectors. It looks the same. They're from the same dies. And once again, the obverse die is about 10% smaller than the reverse die by actual measurement. So what do we think we know about it? Well, we think we know it's a $quarter pattern, and we think we know it was made by Joseph Wright. Everybody knows that, right? Raise your hand if you know that. I know that, you know. Well, I'm about to disabuse you of your knowledge. The first one known was in this U.S. Mint collection, now in the Smithsonian, kept in the Mint collection for many decades as a cent, probably because it was in copper. The reverse somewhat resembles a now lost drawing by Joseph Wright. Somewhat resembles a now lost source, okay? You're getting very deep into hearsay now, right? Obverse, as I said, is about 10% narrower than the reverse, 27 millimeters, which happens to be the diameter of a chain cent. The reverse is 29.2 millimeters. The 1796 quarter is 27.5 millimeters, so neither one of them is the same size as a quarter. The obverse is the same size as a chain cent. Why do we think it's by Wright? Well, Washington and Jefferson planned to appoint him as the first engraver and die sinker at the Mint, There's no documentation that they ever did, and he died in the yellow fever of 1793. His children apparently had a drawing similar to the reverse, and we'll get to that in a moment. On his deathbed in 1793, he asked to be paid for 2 dies for $0.25 that broke in hardening, and also for the medal for valor at Paulus Hook by Lee, and he was paid for the medal for Paulus Hook. He was not paid for the $0.25 pattern. So, and there must have been a reason he was not paid. If the government really owes you money, you get it, okay? His estate was not paid for the quarter. The existing coins do not show any evidence that the dies cracked or broke, even in hardening, even after hardening. The dies are not damaged. So this is a famous portrait of Joseph Wright and his family, painted in 1793. He was married in 1789 to Sarah Vandervoort, the lovely lady on his right. Yeah, your left, his right. And they had 3 children. And so the kid, this is 1793, 4 years after they got married. I assume that the twins in the green and at the bottom are probably about 3, and the infant looks like an infant. So this is how old the kids were when they died, okay? Note their ages. Wright apparently only painted the faces. He did not paint the clothing, he did not paint the background. All the rest of it was just roughed in and completed many years later, and we don't know by whom. The painting has never been conserved, so we don't really know how much of it was done by him. But the style, I'm not going to go into his painting style, don't worry, I'm not going to drag you through that. But the style is nothing like his painting. His oil paintings are very, very, very flat. There's very little three-dimensionality to it, very little texture, and this is much better than his paintings, okay? He was not that good of a painter. I know, we in numismatics we say he was the god of art in the 1790s because we think he made this pattern. He's not the god of the mint, okay? So what has been written about it? This is Adams and Wooden. Wait, I need to get my glasses. Did I just Nope, I didn't hurt anything. I think I just gave you too much noise. United States Pattern and Trial and Experimental Pieces, Adams and Wooden, 1913. This is the first published image of one of these coins. This is the one that's in the Mint collection. Obverse, a nude female bust to the right. Around the border of the reverse is a circle of 87 small stars, copper, reeded edge. Only 2 specimens known, one of which was offered in the Bushnell sale, and the other is in the Philadelphia Mint. The Bushnell coin was the one I showed you. There is also a specimen of this design in tin, but we are not sure if it was struck from these dies. As we have seen, it is struck from those dies. Okay, and this goes way back to 1834. History of the Rise and Progress of Arts of Design in the United States by William Dunlap. This was published in 1834, 41 years after the death of Joseph Wright. And he wrote about Wright. He wrote, he was a modeler in clay and practiced die sinking, which last gained him appointment shortly before his death of die sinker to the Mint, blah, blah, blah. At the bottom, under the asterisk, the footnote, I have before me a design for a cent made by Mr. Wright and dated 1792. It represents an eagle standing on the half of a globe and holding in his beak a shield with the 13 stripes. The reverse had been drawn on the same piece of paper and afterwards cut out. This is 41 years after Wright's death. He got this from the kids. The kids, of course, do not remember their parents because they were ages 3 or 1 at the time. So we're hearing family lore. Okay, we're hearing family lore. The numismatist, 1954, Georgia S. Chamberlain, Joseph Wright, first draftsman and die sinker to the United States Mint. She quotes Dunlap. His most pertinent words are a footnote to his account of Wright. I have before me a cent. She did not quote him correctly. He had a design for a cent made by Mr. Wright and dated 1792 and so on. And she says at the bottom, the reverse of the cent, number 12 in the United States Pattern, Trial, and Experimental Pieces by Edgar H. Wooden, it's by Adams and Wooden, somewhat resembles this description. The obverse female bust to the right is dated 1792. So what you have just seen is all of the evidence that Joseph Wright designed this coin. Okay? But I want you to think. The style, engraving style, is extremely different from any other 1792 pattern. Nothing whatsoever like any of the other patterns. The head is very delicately engraved and very small in the field. There's way too much space around it. The eagle is also softly engraved and not in flight. The eagle looks like it's just landed and furling its wings. Can't be attributed to anyone at the mint based on the style. Okay? The lettering and the date are very, very, very weakly impressed, and suggests to me that it was probably added later. Punch linkage? Well, let's go back to this. We already looked at these. It's the same as what I showed you on the slide before. Here's the eagle on globe. It's a short tail to the R, a much deeper Y. The lower limb of the E is the same length as the upper. There's a very short upper limb on the T, whereas the other ones are very wide. And the B is very narrow. All of these are from a different set of punches. And as I said, they were punched in very weakly. So, eagle on globe did not use mint punches. Engraving style is very different from other mint products, so it's probably not a mint product. Okay? Probably not a mint product at all. Importantly, the dies did not break or even crack in hardening, or for that matter in use, because all of the 4, 5, 6, all of the 6 coins that were made, even though 4 are in white metal, all of the 6 coins that were made show no evidence of die breakage. Dunlap's report was 41 years after Wright's death and from his children, who were 3 or younger when he died. Probably don't remember their parents. Wright was not paid for his $quarter pattern, so the EOG was probably not Wright's $quarter pattern. So, this brings me to the end. The makers of the 1792 patterns. And I want to give credit at the top to Henry Voigt, chief coiner of 1792 to 1813. He was originally hired as chief coiner pro tem, which means he wasn't even given a permanent job when they hired him. He is the guy who is responsible for putting the mint together. He supervised all of the guys that built all the stuff in the mint, renovated the buildings and so on. We can definitely attribute the Disney obverse to him, the birch reverse, second reverse, the silver center reverse, the chain obverse and reverse, wreath obverse and reverse, and the 1793 half-cent obverse and reverse. Birch, first name unknown, but probably Robert, because a Robert Birch worked a few years before that in the company where Henry Voigt worked. So we suspect it's Robert Birch. He did the birch cent obverse and first reverse and the half-dime, half-dismy obverse. We don't know who made the silver center cent obverse or the dismy and half-dismy reverses. We know that Geyer made the punches used in 1792 and some used in 1793, and Bay made some of the punches used in 1793, and as I said, he also coined the wreath and probably the chain cents. We don't have a record of who coined the chain cents because that ledger is missing and has been missing for several decades. I think it's amazing that we know who made the punches for these coins more than we know who made the coins. You know, it's remarkable. And on that note, any questions? Yeah.
So, Birch or Wright made something that was $quarter.
He says he did,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So if he didn't get paid for the guys, is it possible that he made the eagle on globe reverse with a correctly sized obverse die, it was the obverse that broke. And it wasn't, wasn't able to be struck as a quarter because they didn't have an obverse, and then later this die was cobbled together.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can speculate. I don't like to speculate. Yeah,
All I noticed every one of those coins had America spelled out.
yeah.
Then we got to the change, we had a.
Amorite. Why'd they do that?
That's my question.
Absolutely. There's a good reason they did that. They did that, and it was not a mistake. Okay? The Amorite spelling was definitely not a mistake. When Voigt laid out the reverse, because they made diagrams of exactly where everything was going to go. Everything was laid out beforehand. Engravers didn't make mistakes, okay? They planned everything. And I think they made the America die first, and the spacing was way off. The spacing is way asymmetric on the America reverse. And I think he didn't like it, and I think he redid a reverse with Amorite so that everything was symmetrical. And I think he used it first because it was the better die. I published that some time ago in Pennywise. You can find it in there, yeah.
Thanks. So Bill?
Yeah.
As a really silver collector, early quarter collector, you raised a couple of interesting things, because if you look at the Mint, they did things practically. So they, quickly after their trials, they initiated minting of the coin at $17.94 half, $17.94, $17.94 half time. The first quarter was $17.96. So that's actually also additional argument. Why would a pattern have been done 4 years before? These guys were trying to get things done. They weren't trying to sit on their asses and just sort of devise something that they were going to introduce years and years later. So that does sort of correlate with a question, of whether Joseph Wright had done the trial.
Yeah.
I just don't see them waiting 4 years after inventing the trial before they strike something. This didn't make sense from
I can't disagree with you at all.
I have no idea, I wasn't alive then, but.
No, I wasn't either, although it seems like it sometimes. Yeah.
To my untrained, uneducated eye, one of those eagles looks like a prehistoric bird. Well, could you explain that, please?
Yeah, I don't think that the engravers actually had ever seen a real eagle. Real eagles don't have long necks, first of all. They have almost no neck at all. And in fact, if you look at the eagles on the small eagle silver coins from the 1790s, they look just like that. They've got these long necks. It doesn't look like an eagle. I think the Mint just didn't know what an eagle really looked like. Yeah, it looks more like a turkey or something, or chicken or whatever.
Which was under debate as the national
Yes.
bird.
Yeah,
Ben
but-
Franklin wanted the turkey.
Yeah, he did, yeah. He said the eagle was, what did he say the eagle was a bad character somehow. Yeah. Yeah,
And I think that was why the Mint eagle, the Peter the eagle that they stuffed, the design got much better when they had it.
That's true. Yeah,
had
that's
the
true.
model there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's true, yeah. Anybody else?
Remember
Yeah.
a story about, there was a Mint journal or a person's journal that's been lost? They know that it exists.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had had that? I don't know.
Yes, well, we did have it at one time.
Yeah, we
This
did
was,
have it at one
this
time.
was Henry Voigt's, you can
Henry
call it a
Voigt's,
day
yeah,
book
okay.
or whatever. He listed who was working in the Mint that day, what they were doing, and also what they were paid. And he kept those books starting in 1792. His book from 1792 until the end of the chain sense has disappeared, and nobody knows where it is. But we have everything beginning with the beginning of the wreath sense, and until the end of when he was keeping this. So that's why I say we think Birch was probably involved in coining the chain sense. We don't know. We know he was the main guy that coined the wreath sense. So that's why I said probably the chains too, but we don't know. Yeah.
What about the influence of the British engravers on early American mintage? I'm thinking about the eagle in particular. The early 1800s, this extended neck, was quite popular.
Did they do that too?
Pardon?
They did that too? The British did that too? Okay. Maybe they didn't know what an eagle looks like either. I don't know. Yeah, Kevin.
Did you compare the letter punches on the 1793 Liberty Cap sent to the Eagle on Globe?
I did not. I did not.
The Liberty Cap set was done by Wright.
No. No, the Liberty Cap scent was done by Voigt.
It was done by Wright.
Yeah.
Well, those two stylistically have always looked similar to me.
Yeah, some people, but I think it's a case of pareidolia. It's a case of people seeing what they think they see, and what they want to see. But there is just no evidence whatsoever that Joseph Wright designed any U.S. mint coin. There's none. He was not paid for any. He was never on the payroll. He asked to get paid for that pattern, but he didn't get paid for it, which means they didn't accept it, or they didn't do it, or maybe he didn't even do it. He just said he did it. I think Joseph Wright never did anything for the U.S. Mint other than that Paulus Hook medal. He did that, which if you read the book about Committee Americana medals, they savage it. They talk about how horrible it is. Yeah.
You say the die cutters or the engravers don't make mistakes. I got a kick out of that. But do you know why they used an I on the 1795 half cent for the first digit?
Probably what they had, or maybe they picked up the wrong thing.
Okay.
You know, these are very small. You know, it could be that they couldn't find a 1 at the time.
Do you believe the 3 martini lunch theories?
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, there was, I didn't mean to go into this, but there was a rum ration at the Mint for a while. They got rid of that. They did cancel that. And as I said, Jacob Bay was fined twice for being drunk and fired the 3rd time. So there was some of that. It wasn't safe to drink the water back in those days, so it was much safer to drink something stronger. Anyway, thank you all.